my story is a tumultuous one. I've been through an interesting voyage. Look, I put myself on the voyage. Nobody put a gun to my head and said, go be a lobbyist, go over the line, go push the envelope, go do things that you later would regret. I did all those things on my own. And I paid a price for it. I paid a price that included, not only losing everything we had and winding up in a federal prison for a very long period of time, but also the sort of international ignominy that comes with this whole deal. I was happily a private citizen, figuring nobody would ever be able to pronounce my last name, let alone spell it, and just busily working away. And then one day, I woke up as a consequence again of me and what I did, and was on the front pages of newspapers, and thrust into the middle of a scandal of my own making, and the making of those with me, that just kept growing and growing and growing, and was confusing at times to me. I mentioned earlier today, I went through the various phases, of why is this happening to me? What did I do that's so bad? And this will blow over. It's Washington. Everybody has ADD. Nobody remembers anything tomorrow, and on and on and on, until I was able to, thank God, sort of work my way through. And I spent my time there, moved on to President Reagan's lobby, and as mentioned earlier today, encountered my first corruption in Washington, where a congressman who was a Democrat called me in, and we were working the MX missile. I don't know if you remember that one. We were trying to get the MX missile approved, and I was head of President Reagan's lobby. We were doing the vote counts, and we were 6 votes short, and I was called into this congressman's office, who was one of the leaders in the Hispanic caucus, and he promised us 13 votes if he got a missile base in his district. And that was sort of the first taste for me of how Washington works. Well, I didn't get too many more tastes. I went off to become a movie producer, actually. The natural progression, of course, from politics. Well, for Republicans, because don't forget, Reagan was an actor, became a politician. This is what Republicans are busy doing. So I went off to be a movie producer. I sort of got out of it for a while and came back in '94. And in '94, when the Republicans did very well and won the Congress, I became a lobbyist. And but a different kind of lobbyist, not the kind of lobbyist I was, working on sort of public policy matters, but a lobbyist working for clients. And I learned the business, and I built a practice. And in building the practice, started to accumulate more and more clients, and more people who worked for me, and hired more and more people off Capitol Hill to be lobbyists, and ultimately got up to, I guess, about 40 lobbyists who worked for me. And we built the practice to be the #1 practice in DC, for better or for worse. And ultimately, the taste of winning became so important. The taste of defeat we didn't have. We only lost one time in 10 years. And that I mentioned earlier. Also, that's a problem. That's a problem. In fact, when I speak to the FBI and the DOJ training schools, invariably they do questions at the end. They say, from their perspective, how do we detect when there's a problem in the lobbying business? What should we be looking for? And so what you should look for is somebody who doesn't lose. Because you can't not lose. It doesn't make sense in politics. I mean, you can't win everything, right, Senator? I mean, you don't win everything. So we were winning everything. Now, were we winning everything because we were just paying off everybody? No, of course not. We were working hard. But we were, unfortunately, deeply enmeshed in a system of corruption in Washington that's so endemic to the system and so unbelievably important as a part of the system that most people who are involved in it not only don't realize that they're doing something wrong, but they think they're doing everything right. And unfortunately, to some degree, I was that person. In the process of going through a lot of pain, I'm very fortunate that I was able to start analyzing myself, which I didn't like what I saw, and the system. And for myself, it was important because there was no way for me to try to repair myself, try to work on turning it around. And look, I've been trying to turn it around every day since that day. But to change a characteristic, to change your essence, is very difficult. It's very difficult. And to work on that and to struggle and to fight is a daily thing. It's like my constant losing battle with dieting, only it's more serious than dieting. At least it was more serious for me. And so that was me, and I continue to hope and try to do that. But more important, at a certain other level, was the system. And all the things that Common Cause stands for, and a lot of other reform groups in DC stood for, all those things, I basically, when I thought about them, I disdained them. I thought, oh, a bunch of silly people. What are they talking about? They're going to change rules? Come on. We have the power, the lobbyists, the congressmen who support us. They're not going to change anything. And guess what? They didn't. They didn't. They still haven't. We still haven't in DC. There are some changes. They make some modifications. They move some of the chairs around on the ship. But the ship is still going where it's going. And my thought process was I started going through that. And I started to not only be sorry that I was part of that system, but be really upset that that system is our system. Where is this from? Where did this come from? Certainly nobody of good will in our country wants this, but yet it's there. It's a system where we have, sorry to say, legalized bribery. We have a legalized system where somebody like me could take, as I did, millions of dollars a year, because I had unlimited funds at my fingertips with my clients, and get results. Maybe not with just making contributions and going and giving gifts and whatnot. There were legislative strategies, there were battles, there were this or that, and we worked hard on those fronts too. But there's something wrong with a system where that is the outcome. And where not only that's going on, but everybody up there feels that they're pure as the driven snow. That they're not being bribed, they're not being impacted. I can't tell you how many times I heard, I wouldn't sell my vote for $2,500 contribution. I don't sell my vote for tickets to the Washington Wizards. I mean, that all right, I get. All right. But I wouldn't sell my vote for going to play golf. That's not me. And they believe it. And you can strap them to a lie detector test and they'll pass. And you put a Bible in front of them, they'll put their hand on it. And they believe it, but they're wrong. They're wrong. I was in a situation where, until I came to that epiphany, I figured, all right, what did I do? What's so wrong here? I came to the epiphany, and I started working through the system. And I realized that the system is wrong, and this is horrible, and this is destroying America, and they're right. My critics are right. And that's horrible to come to that realization, by the way. It's not fun to come to that realization. I didn't feel like, oh, good Jack, oh, well, you get it. No, I felt like a jerk. On top of the fact that I was being pounded, I now realized I was wrong. And then the time came for me to go to prison. And that was pretty bad too. So going into prison, I decided that, look, I'm going to go do my time. And when I entered prison, I didn't know how long I'd be there because I wasn't sentenced fully yet. And so I went and entered prison. And I wanted to just do my time and then go away. I didn't want to have any more publicity. I didn't want to have any more articles. I didn't want to have any more to do with the media. Nothing. Just take my children, my wife, and my father. My mother had passed away while I was in prison. And just go away and become anonymous. Oh, in prison, they passed a reform bill called HELOGA. These initials are great. HELOGA. And HELOGA, honest government, honest leadership in government, whatever. And HELOGA was a good attempt to try to do something on the part of Public Citizen, which is another group that works on these issues. And a guy in Washington named Craig Holman, who's a great guy, and he worked very hard to get a bill through. And when they put the bill through, of course, they changed the bill. And they made it so, you gotta find a little bit of exceptions. We have to have a few exceptions. We can't have a pure bill, so they put through some exceptions. And I got Hologa. My lawyer mailed me Hologa in prison. Mail call one night, in came Hologa. And I read it. And I thought to myself, if I were a lobbyist, take me, I don't know, a day to get through this. Not read it, to get around it. Okay, to get around it. And I was trying to think, what in my activities of the past would I not be able to do because of Hologa? And I couldn't come up with anything. And this was the Reform Act because of the Jack Abramoff scandal. So at first I thought, the old Reagan, well, there they go again. That kind of thing, right? But I then started thinking, this is terrible. They're never going to not do this. This is what I do now. I don't lobby, except everybody lobbies. What's lobbying? Lobbying is convincing people, right? Or persuading people, or advocating things. That's what lobbying is. When lobbyists use money to buy the result, that's the corruption. Lobbying itself isn't bad. So I lobby now as well. I don't lobby legislators. I go out and talk to people. And I've got to tell you, I've been on 300 radio and TV shows. Every week I'm out there, except for the people who live inside the Beltway and certain people who are involved in this kind of stuff. Not one person thinks this system is good and right. But the good news is there's so much anger out there. There's so much hostility to this. People are so upset about this that with the right plan and a pure plan, a plan where the problem is actually solved instead of Band-Aids, it's possible, in my view, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, in terms of the federal side, but in a few years to actually solve this. And so for me, it's part recompense for having spent, shamefully, years in the system. It's part realizing this is the thing that needs to be done. And it's part a desire and a hope that this great country that we have, and it is a great country, can in fact survive in a way that we're all proud of it. Because I have to tell you, this particular ailment of corruption is at the root of almost all of our problems. It causes all of the people who are supposed to deliberate and and come to answers to our problems and come to solutions, rather, it causes them to get off the path. And just as the Bible says that bribery blinds the eyes of the wise, I don't know how wise they are, but it's certainly blinding their eyes. And so anyway, it's an honor for me to come and speak with you. All of you who get it intuitively, all of you who get it better than I got it until I had to get it. And so for me, it's not just an honor to be here with the senator and representative and with William, who is a hero, but all of you. And I can only hope and pray and encourage you to please do whatever you can do, because every one of us can change this, and it must be changed, or our children and their children will not have a free country. It's that serious. So anyway, thank you for having me today. It was an honor.